So JavaScript is a powerful, high-level interpreted script language that allows developers to create dynamic, interactive web pages. It is widely used to manipulate web content, create interactive elements, and handle user inputs. So the job of the HTML, I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, sir.
The job of the HTML is to provide our web application with its structure. The job of the CSS is to provide our web application with its design. The job of the JavaScript is to provide our web application with its interactivity. So that is why we need to learn JavaScript, because if without the JavaScript, the animations, the things moving, the pop-ups we get, and all of those things will not be there if we do not have the JavaScript there already available to us. So, what are the key concepts in JavaScript? First of all, we have the variable. Every programming language we learn what is a variable, what is a variable. So JavaScript also has a variable. With JavaScript, for me to write a variable, all I need to do is either put the name var or let or const in front of the word I want to call a variable. So for me to call something a variable, I need to put the word var or let or const in front of the word. Now, when do I use var? When do I use let? When do I use const? Const, used in earlier versions, has function scoped or global scoped behavior. That is, if I have a particular application I am writing, so over here I'm writing an application. I have main, and inside main, I have land 1, and I have land 2. So this is what I have. Right? I have land 1, I have land 2. This is what I have. Now, this here is the main. Let me see if I can put it in terms of this. Let me remove it from here. And let me put this inside here, rather. Let me save this as, let's say, main dot. Yes. Okay, so in here, let me put this in here like this. Perfect. Let me make this bigger so everybody can see. Settings. Let me make this short. That's this bit out. Great. Now I am here. I have this here as main. And in main, I have land 1 and land 2. Now, in here, I have x is equal to 2. Now, if I come here and I say display x, and I come here and I say display x. Now, in here, right, this word, this x is equal to 2 here, is what we call global. It is global because it is outside of the land 1 and the land 2. And it can be used by land 1 and line 2. So when I say display X, over here, I will be displaying 2. And over here, I'll be displaying 2. Now, in line 1 alone, if I do X is equal to 4, will the display X still display 2 here? No, it will not. It will display 4. Why? Because this X here is local. Now, what we are saying is, if I have this thing here, and then I come in here, for me to make sure the computer knows that this thing here is global and it is not local, I have to use the word var. So when I use the word var, it means that this variable here can be used in any scope. So it can be used here or it can be used here, regardless of what it's being used for. The moment I don't want a variable, note, if I come and I use var here, it means that the X can be used here. Let's say this was not there, but I typed var over here. It means that now this is no more local, but it is global because I use the word var over here. That means that it can be used here and it can be used here too. That is why I would not get an error here because of the var being there. So now this variable here is what? Global. For me to make it local, which means it will only work between this bracket and that bracket, I have to use the word let over here. That means that this thing cannot leave these brackets and come and work here. That means here, I will no more get this answer, but I'll get an error because this thing here doesn't have any value. If I turn this, so this thing here, because of the let, it is now what? Local. The moment I change this let into var, then it means it is no more local, but it is now what? Global. And that means that it can work out of its jurisdiction. That means it can work here, and here I'll get a display of what? 4. Now, I would use const, and it has the same properties of let, which means that it will only work between here and here. That means here I would get an error. And then over here, the variable is what? Local. But if I use const over here, it means that this X is equal to 4 will never change in the lifespan of the program. That means I cannot come and then do X is now equal to 5. I can't do that because I just told the computer that this value here is a constant. It will never change. So for me to be able to say X is equal to 5, then I have to change this from a constant to what? Let. But remember, because this is still let, it means it is local. So it will work from here to here alone. Now, unlike Java, whereby wherever we needed to create a variable, we have to say int something something. We don't have to do that with JavaScript. Because at the point in time where we are telling the computer that X is equal to 4, the JavaScript will determine the data type by itself and assign the data type by itself. So all we need to do is tell it if it is a var, a let, or a const. But remember, we need to know when to use which. If it is var, then it is global. If it is let, then it is local. If it is const, then it is local, but it is a constant, so we cannot change the word value. So over here in our notes, we can see that they are telling us that when we use this, then we are using it in a global setting. When we use let, then we are using it for a localized setting. And when we are using this, it means that we can use it once. We cannot reassign any value to it. We can only use it what? Once. Are there any questions so far?
Sir, can you hear me? I want to ask a question.
Of course.
Could you go back to the code?
Okay.
So with the let variable, assuming that you declared it at the main.
So over here.
And yes, though is, let's say, a local scope, and then the other, let's say, functions are within the main scope. Can those functions, will the variable still be accessible within those functions?
But yes, it will still be accessible within these functions. The reason is that,
Okay.
let's say this main here is Ghana, right? And
Yeah.
then here is Accra, and here is Kumasi. Are we okay?
Yeah.
So if I have a license plate, I can use it in Accra and I can use it in what? Kumasi, right? Now, if we are saying, if I did the same thing like this, and let's say I created another environment here. So now I have, let's say this is main 1, wait, main 2, and over here I have main 1. Okay. So now let's say this here is Accra in Ghana, and over here we have Togo. This x is +1 is not here, x +4 is not here. This here will not work in this environment because here this and this do not exist in this. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, it will not leave these brackets and come and work in this main here. But because
Okay.
this and this are in this, and we declare this in this, it will work for this and it will work for what? This.
Okay. Understood.
Thank you. So another thing which I said was that we can, at load time, the data type is assigned. So over here we have num is equal to 40, str is equal to this, is true is equal to true, this is equal to now, and these are all acceptable because with JavaScript, at the point in which this is being given to this, the data type will be determined by the programming language itself. So you don't need to come and tell the computer this is an integer, or this is a string, or this is a Boolean, or this is a null data set. The computer itself will determine the data type. So yours is just to use the word let or var or const based on the circumstance in which you are writing the programming language. Is that clear? Another thing too is that the same rules apply for all the other programming languages, whereby we have operators in JavaScript too. So we have the arithmetic operator where we have your plus, minus, star, slash, and then your modulus. We have the assignment operator where you have your equal to, plus equal to. Plus equal to is the same as me writing. Let's say I write num1 plus equal to 2. That is the same as me writing num1 is equal to num1 plus what? 2. So instead of me writing this, I'll just write num1 plus equal to 2. And this is the same as me doing an assignment operator. So I can do minus is equal to, or star is equal to, or slash is equal to. That means that over here, if I did slash is equal to, that means I will divide and make it equal to the thing itself. We also have the comparison applications. We have the equal to, which says that the thing is the same as the other thing. So an example of this is this. If I do num1 is equal to 2, and I do num2 is equal to into bracket 2, and I say num1 equals num2, this would give me an answer of what? True. And why will this give me an answer of true? It will give me an answer of true because here it is 2, and here is also 2. So they are both 2. So it will give me an answer of true. If I was to redo this again, and I was to put an equal to sign here, this would give me an answer of false. Because this is a 2, this is a 2, But this 2 here is a number, and this 2 here, this 2 over here is a character. So they are not the same. They are not equal. The two 2's, if we take it on the surface, they are both 2. But when we are going to their data type, they are not the same. One is a number, the other one is a string. So this one here is checking equivalence. Are they the same even at the data type levels? So we have the not equal to, the not equals to, the greater than, less than, and all of those symbols in which we know from our previous languages. And also the logical operators, we have the and we have the or, and we have the not. So the same things apply here too. Is that okay? Now, JavaScript is an event-based language, which means that with JavaScript, I am going to code with this format. If I do something, then this piece of code should run. In programming, when we say this piece of code should run, if I do something, that the word for all of that is called a function. So a function is a piece of code that is called upon to run to execute a particular task. So if I have a task I want to perform, and I know the task I want to perform, I would write the set of those tasks down so that when I need it, I will call upon it for it to be done. Let's take an example of this. I will close here. I'll come to my main screen. I'll open a file in Explorer. I'll go to my desktop. And at my desktop, I would create a folder, and I'll call the folder class 3. In this folder called class 3, I would open this folder up in VS Code. Now, once this folder is opened up in VS Code, I would create my index.html file. And in here, I'll type the basic structure of the HTML page. I'll say HTML semicolon 5, and then I'll press my tab button, and this will be written up for me. Now in here, I can either type my JavaScript code directly in the same document, or I can create another document and type it there and call on the document here. I would type it in another document and call upon it over here. How will I do that? Now, in my body, at the bottom of my page, I will type the script code, and I'll use src to showcase the place that I can find the script code I am joining to my page. That code, I'm going to call it script.js, and then I will close my script code using the close script tag. So here, that means that in my folder, I need to create script.js. I will just click on Control and press Enter, and the computer asks me, they're trying to open something that is not created. Do you want to create it? I'll tell the computer to create it, so that on the side here, we can see I now have script.js, and I have this window here that I can type in my JavaScript code. So in here, I can say, let number 1 be equal to 2. Let number 2 be equal to 2. Let's say be equal to 3. With JavaScript, the semicolon is optional, but you see, JavaScript is a kind of language in which the onus is on you, the programmer, to be specific. So if you are not that specific, your program will not run the way you want it. So I advise you always bring the semicolon at the end. And then you make sure each statement is on a new line. You don't join statements on a line. But that's just me advising you on that, so that it minimizes the errors you make. Once you become proficient, you can make the changes as you go along. Now in here, I'll just say let sum be equal to number 1 plus number 2. Very simple. Now I want to display this. So I'll tell the computer that it should go to its console and log for me sum. So when I come to my browser, my index.html, and I right click and I click on open a live server, this piece of code here would open up for me in the browser. Of course, there's nothing here because the HTML code, I have not typed anything in the body. I just linked it to the script tagging which I have here. So once I open this, I realize there's nothing here. But if I right click and I click on inspect, and then I go and click on the console, I can see that in the console, let me refresh this. I can see that in the console, I have my 5 plus 5, my 2 plus 2, giving me what? 5. I can see it over here. And I can see that it is telling me that it is coming from the script.js file on line 4. When I click here, I can see that my line 4 is telling me to display on console. So it means my application is working. Again, when I go and click on console, because there's a lot of things here, but I want what? Console. And in console, I can see that I have displayed the answer over here. Now, that is one way of displaying in JavaScript. Let me just comment this out. I can also display in JavaScript by using the alert. So here I have the word alert. And then in here, I'll put here sum. Now, when I come down here, and then I refresh my screen, I can see that when I refresh my screen, I can see it pops up with a pop-up that says 5. And when I press OK, it goes away. So that is what we call an alert. The pop-up that normally pops up on the top here like this, that is an alert. And you can see me displaying the answer for my thing over there. So I can display using console, or I can display using an alert. I can also display using the material on the screen. And the material on the screen comes from the HTML. So it means I can display my content in the HTML. The question is, how will I display it in the HTML? In here, I would create a p tag, and I'll give the p tag an ID called display. Very simple. Now you see why we learn the HTML and the CSS, because everything we will do will be the base is the HTML and the CSS. So if you are not able to do that, everything else will be a bit difficult for us. So over here, I have displayed this. And in here, I will put the answer is here. Now over here, I would create a button and I will call my button ID get answer. One word. And then in here, I will type get answer spaced so that the person can see. So when I go to my display again, to display my work, I refresh. It tells me the pop-up is 5. I press OK. Did I save it? Let me see. I don't think I saved. Okay, I saved this one. And over here, did I save this? Yes, I did. Good. So I have that, closes here, that's fine. I come here, I run this code, and I get this. So in here, I get, the answer is here. And when I press this, I expect to get the answer I'm looking for. Very simple. Let us note the words in which I just used. I said, when I press this, I expect to see the answer. When I press this. So in here, I'm going to create a function. And I'm going to call my function, the F is small, sorry. I'm going to call my function show value. And the function comes with a parenthesis and a body. Now, this here is the parameters. It goes with this. So this and the parameters is called the signature of the function. So whenever I need a function, I would use the signature. So if I copy this and I come here, in the button, I can tell the computer, first of all, that I am using type button. And secondly, I can tell the computer on click, go and use the code you have in show value. So when I click on it, the computer will go to show value. When it goes to show value, it will execute the codes that are in here. What code should be in here? I want the computer to take num1, take num2, and then display it as an alert. That's what I want. So when I come back here on my screen, I refresh it, and I click here, I expect to see 5 popping up. So I click, I see 5 is here, and it means that it is working. Now, again, let's go back to some few statements I made. A function is a piece of code you call upon to execute a particular task. How do I call upon the function? Over here, I'm telling the computer that on the click of you, so on you being clicked, go and issue the command. So here again, I can see that I told the computer on click. So the computer knows that, okay, on the button being clicked, I'm supposed to do all the commands that are here. The function goes with the word and the thing in the parentheses. Together, they are called the word signature. So in here, I do not want to display it as an alert. I want it to go and replace the information I have over here. That means that in here, there are some pieces of code I need to write. I'm going to explain each and every single one of those codes I need to write. The first piece of code I need to write is that the document I am currently on, go and take that document. Now, when you take that document, I want you to look at every single HTML tag and look at the ID of each and every single HTML tag. So in here, I'll say get element by ID. So this get element by ID is going to take each and every single HTML tag and look at their IDs. And when you are looking for the ID, what ID do you want it to look for? I want you to look for the ID that is called display. So in here, I'll look for the ID called display. Now, when the computer finds that, I want you to give it to let D control. So the computer will look, listen to the words carefully. The computer will look through the entire document. So here I have the entire document. It will look at every ID in this document. And it will look for the ID called display. When it finds the ID called display, when it is coming back, it's not bringing the ID called display. It is bringing the tag. That's the element, the tag. If I put the cursor on this, you see that it says body element, P element, button element. You never see me showing you, it tells me button element. So I'm telling the computer, go and get me the element. So when it comes here and it finds the ID, it is not bringing back the ID. It is bringing back the element associated to the ID. And the ID, the element is coming is P. That means that in here, the P tag in which I have over here, I have gone for it. I have it. So I can now tell the computer that the P tag in which you have, so here I can say D control, that's the P tag I have. Go and get me the inner HTML of it. And when you get it, make it equal to sum. So you'll see that when I come back to my browser and I click on this button here, the inner elements are replaced with what? Sum. Because I told the computer, get me the P, and when you get me the P, look for its inner HTML element. And this is the inner HTML element. Now I'm telling you that make it equal to the sum I have. And the sum I have is 5. So what will be replaced here will be what? 5. So you can see that over here, I've just showed you how to display in your console, how to display as an alert, how to display in your HTML by using document.getElement by ID to locate it. And this is why the ID is important, because the ID is unique. The ID cannot be shared. I know that if I write display here, I am going for a specific thing and I can control that specific thing. Do we have any questions? If we do not have any questions, then what if in here I go and do this? Input type, yes?
Yes, I'm saying two coding editing areas. So I don't know where we are right now. Is it the HTML and then the console? The two areas are confusing. Can you please explain the?
I do not understand your question. Can you repeat it?
The page you are on right now, I know that it is HTML editing area, but the other area that you went where the other console, yeah, this place. I can't understand this place. It said it's an editing area.
Okay. So I have a page here for HTML code.
Yes.
Now in this page, I can design the structure of my application. At the bottom of this page on line 15, do you see this code here?
Yes.
It says script src in quotes script.js, and then I close the script tag. That means that I am taking the JavaScript code. Here's the JavaScript code, script.js. So you can see that I have it over here on the side. And when I click on it, this is the page that comes up. So this is a script.js page. So I am attaching the code I have here to the page that is here. I could have done this. I could have said this should go away so that in here, I will go and put the code I have here. That means that I am now typing that code directly in my what? HTML page. So where I have my HTML page, I'll have my JavaScript code there. But I don't want it like that. what I want to do is write my JavaScript page code in a page dedicated for JavaScript alone. And then I will bring all of that code into my HTML by using this tagging, which I have here, to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
That means that
Just
all
add
the
with
code
that.
here are now added here. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Now, when I come in here again and I refresh, I can see I have a space here and a space here. And I still have my button that when I click on it, tells me that everything is what? 5. What do I do with this space and this space here? What do I do with it? Now, how did I write it? I said input type is number and it has an ID of number 1. Input type is number and it has an ID of number 2. Now, in the script here, I'll go over here and I'll type the following code. Document dot get element by ID, and the element is going to look for is called number 1. I'll do the same thing for this one, and I'll tell the computer to get element by ID, and the element is going to look for is called number 2. What will this code do? This code will go into my document, my HTML document. It will look through all of the elements, and it will look for the one that has the ID called what? Number 1. And it will bring me the input tag. Now over here, I'm telling the computer, let number 1, which means I don't need the whole input tag. I only need what the person has typed in the square box in which they have. So when you open your browser and you type, let's say, this here, 1, 2, 3 over here, or you type 1, 4, 5 over here, I want only the 1, 4, 5. I don't want the whole box. This piece of code here gives me the whole box. But if I only want the 1, 4, 5, I'll just bring dot value over here. Because whenever you type in the value property of the input tag. Over here too, I want dot what? Value. That means that in here, I have just collected the information the person has typed in the input tag. Now, this piece of information does not have to be here. All of these can go because we've typed them in here, and I'll replace it with this so that now in my function, I will go and collect the element, and not only the element, the value that the person has typed. I'll go and collect the element, and not only the element, the value of the person has typed, and then I will sum them up and give it to this. Now, let's see if it works. I'll come here, I'll click, I'll refresh, I'll come here, I will type 1, 2, 3, and here I will type 4, 5, 6, and I'll click get answer, and it is telling me that my answer is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is it wrong? It's not wrong. Because over here, JavaScript, and this is one of the major problems of JavaScript. With JavaScript, you have to be specific. You are telling the person to go and get what the person typed in the first box, get what the person typed in the second box, and join them together. JavaScript does not know it is a plus or addition you are doing. It doesn't even care. That means I have to tell JavaScript that this number 1 here, see it as a number. Don't see it as a string so that you can add it together. See it as a number. Don't see it as a string. If you see it as a string, you can't add it. And we need it to be what? Added. So I would use the word over here, pass. And you can see that there is pass float, but I want pass int. And then in the here, I'll put number 1, and I'll say plus pass int again, And then in here, I'll put in number what? 2. And I'll end with a semicolon. So this parse int will force, I could have used parse floats if I'm dealing with a decimal, but the parse int will force the computer to see this number 1 here as a number. So that when I come back into my code over here, I refresh my screen and I type 1, 2, 3, and I type 1, 4, 5, 6 here, and I press get answer. Oh, sorry, I think I didn't save this one. So let me save it. So I've saved it. I've come back here. I type my 1, 2, 3. I type my 4, 5, 6. It will take this one, add it together, and tell me my answer is what? 5, 7, 9. Look at how every line I explain why I'm doing that line. Look at how I have knowledge of the P tag. We've done that. I have knowledge of the input tag. I know what a button is. Look at how I'm joining them together. I can join the CSS to design it for it to look a bit nice. The JavaScript, the variables. These are the variables. When do we use what? We use let when we want it to be local. Document.getElement by ID. This piece of code here will go and bring me the tag. So if I don't bring the dot value, it means that this here is the whole input tag. Everything you see in this line here, the whole input tag, including the type and ID, that is what I've gone for. I don't need that. What I want is the value property. Over here, we have a value property. You can see that if I type value is equal to 100, and I refresh my screen, you see that in here to show what 100. That means that every time you type something here, technically, you are typing into the value property. So what I'm telling the computer, when you get the input tag, go and look for the value property. Over here too, I'm telling the computer that when you go and bring the P tag, look for only the inner HTML. I am targeting specific things. And I'm using the specific things I have targeted to improve the code in which I am writing. Are there any questions, please? Any questions, please? Can we try something else? Okay. One of you should
Sorry,
tell
I have
me.
a question.
Yes.
Yeah. Could you go back to the code? The HTML. Okay. So where ideally should you put your JavaScript?
Where did I do what?
Where ideally should you put your JavaScript?
Like this, you should create a JavaScript file, and then you should link that file to your document.
Okay. What happens if I put the script anywhere at all?
Is
What do
it
you mean?
always in a body or in a head?
Can I put it anywhere within the document? In your
Are you
case,
to-
you're putting
I-
it. In your case, you are putting it at the bottom of the body. So I was asking
Oh,
if
okay.
you can put it anywhere in
Um,
the document.
you can put it anywhere in the code. Do not put it anywhere in the code.
Okay.
Now, the reason why you do not want to put it anywhere in the code, if I put it in the head tag, the code in the head tag is what loads first. So if you are very observant, the CSS code is put in the head tag because when you load the file, the first thing that would appear on the person's screen is the head tag. So we want the CSS to be there so that when your code comes, then the CSS will take up, then you will see the nice site. So sometimes when you are browsing online, you realize that the sites that you are browsing, when you get to the screen, the page doesn't look nice. Then later on, the page will start to look nice and then it will pop up because the CSS is now coming. If you put a JavaScript here, JavaScript code is very heavy. It's very large. That means that the computer will take a longer time for it to load the elements it should load. Now, if the JavaScript is at the bottom of the body, logically, the body tag will display from the top and then come down. So the person will see the site. Oh, well, for example, let's come here, right? And let me just click here and say I'm looking for City Online, right? I click here. So it's loading. So when it gets here, you see that when it finished loading, it popped up and then things started to come. The things which came at the end, let's watch it again. I think it will be faster now, but the things which came in the end here are the JavaScript. Because the page will load, everything loads nicely. Then here you can say, oh, Muhammad do what? Oh, election. Oh, let me click here. Before you, the person using the software will say, let me click here. Then the JavaScript has loaded. But if the JavaScript is on the top, it means it has to load before the HTML will come. Hence, your page will start to load slower. And the reason why we separate the JavaScript and we separate the CSS is because if they are on the same page, it makes the page larger. Hence, it takes a longer time for the page to load. If they are in different pages, you will load your screen separately, and you can load the JavaScript in the background where the user will be none of the wiser. None of you in this lobby here or in this classroom here has ever gone and said, oh, where is the JavaScript going to come? All you care about is the design and look of the web page. But as to the technicalities that go in the background, you never talk about it. So you realize that there are some places and some sites you go to, it is so heavy and it takes a long time for it to load. The idea is you will make the structure load first and quick. So the HTML code, it should be very small. If to be honest with you, if you look at websites that are built nowadays, you realize that the code that loads from the HTML is very small. It's very, very, very small. City Online FM is running from a PHP script. So that one will not be ideal. But let's say when I go here, or I even go to BBC site, so I'm at BBC site, and I right click, and I go to view source code. This is the source code there. And if you are very observant, all the things you see here, none of them looks like HTML. All of these things are JavaScript and CSS. So everything you're seeing here now is CSS. This here is starts of the body. So now we have the body tag. Very observant. So here we have every single application will have the head tag, body tag, and then we have the div, right? So here we have the div. This is the page fully loaded, ready for me to navigate through. So this is the background of the page. Everything you saw from the top till you got to page line 731 is all CSS. None of it is HTML. No HTML. The HTML code you see is very small. It's like 357 lines. The rest of the content will be generated using the JavaScript so that your page will load fast. So when you come here and you click, everything you click here is being loaded with the JavaScript. Let's go to the My Joy Online, and I click here. Look at how, if you are very observant, look at the seconds it took for it to load. Let's go back here. Let me go back here, and I click here. Look at how quick it popped up. When I go here, and I click, it's fast, but again, the subtleties matter. So again, I'm here, and I click here. Look at how quick it took this one to load. Because the number of things it is bringing onto your page is too much. You have to bring something small, then the other things will take care of the pages themselves. You only need a CSS. The CSS will be very small. The HTML is very small, so the page will load fast. Then the JavaScript can load in the background where no one is the wiser. I hope, Victor, you understand me.
Yeah, understood.
So the idea is the JavaScript is here, and then the CSS will be here. Just like how you saw in the BBC page when we looked at their source code. So even when I look at their source code from this point of view here, everything you see here is fonts, designs, CSS. Now, here is still CSS design. We scroll down, we are still looking at CSS. When we get here, we are done with the CSS, and we are now going to look at the what? The HTML. This is the HTML. So you can see the HTML, and look at where the HTML ends. It's not that big, it's not that plenty, because the rest of the code is going to be loaded in the background using the JavaScript. This is when you start getting into front end, back end, because over here you just have front end code. Everything else is being loaded from the back, and it is quick because it is very small. And when it arrives on your page, you will use the CSS to make it look good. So all you need is the writing, then the CSS will take care of the design. And this is where we get to, or this is where we want to get to. I don't think we'll get to this place, but this is where we want to get to.
Thank you.
Are we okay? Should we continue, or you are tired and we are done for the day? Hello? Are we there?
Yes, sir, we are here.
No, we are here. We are following.
Are you sure?
Follow you.
This class there we for come class, I swear, for come class. The way I'm seeing it is, I think we have to come to the classroom, because the way I'm seeing it is, don't let it be true. You anyway, who can tell me what BMI is? All of us here are over 25. That means we should all know our health. So who here knows what BMI is? BMI, what is it?
It's a form of calculator that calculates the measurement of your body.
It's calculating of your body mass index. Right? Your body mass index.
Yeah.
So if I want to calculate my body mass index, I would use the BMI. How do I calculate my body mass index? I calculate my body mass index by typing in my weight, then my height. Then I click calculate BMI and it tells me that this is my BMI index. And not only the index, but it also tells me if I'm overweight or I'm underweight or I'm obtuse or whatever I am. Is that okay? So we are going to design.
Let's change the weight to 70. Let me see.
The what?
The weight.
The weight 70.
Yeah.
70 kilograms. Oh, okay. And then the height is what? In centimeters.
150.
150 centimeters. What is your BMI?
I missed it. I don't know.
Are you sure your height is 150 centimeters?
I can't remember.
Because normally we take our height in meters. So if it is centimeters there, then Charlie, I think it is supposed to be this.
It is meter.
Hey, I think it is this. You're underweight. So whatever it is in the calculation, you need to know your weight and height. To be honest with you, all of us here need to know our weight, height, and know our body mass index and know if we are eating well or not eating well or healthy or not. When you go to the rural areas, when you go to the hospital, they will tell you to stand on a scale, then they'll measure your height. That is what they are calculating. Of course, they would either use a pen and paper to calculate, but if there's a system where you just type it in and then you click and it gives you all of that information, it makes more sense. So this is the calculation of the BMI. What elements do we see on this page? We see an input tag here, an input tag here, a button here. What did we do that we have that same thing? We have an input tag here, an input tag here, and what's here? A button here. That means we are on track. It's just that we have to do the skirmishes to make it look good. Let's see if we can do the skirmishes to make it look good within the time we have. So I'll go back to my desktop. Oh, I have a message here from somebody, sorry. Okay. I'll go back to my desktop. In my desktop, I'll create a new file called BMI. I'll open it, and then in here, I will type my code doc. I'll open up my application in my VS Code. So I have my application in my VS Code, and it is, I'm ready now to type in my code. I'm ready to go for it. So let us go for it. In here, I'll start with creating 3 files. So first file, index.html. Next file,
JavaScript.
script,
Yes.
script, .js. The next file is style.css. Then I'll click on my index.html. I'll create the basic structure of a HTML page by typing HTML semicolon 5, and I have this done. The title of my web application is going to be BMI calculator. I'll go to my body. I'll create a div tag. So here I have a div. And then inside the div tag, I'll create a heading 1. And I'll call the heading 1 with BMI calculator. In here, I'll give the div a class name called container. And then under here, I would give a form tag. And then I'll say my form tag should have an ID called BMI-form. Then inside my form tag, I will have a div tag called class input -group. Now in here, in the class -group, I'm going to have a label. The label is for the person's weight. And I'll say that my label will have a name the person can see as weight into bracket kilograms. And then I'll end this with a semicolon. Here I'll make it a capital because the person has to see. If it was an internal name, I'll use a small letter like how I did here. That means that now that I have the label, I have to do the input itself. So I'll say input type is equal to number. And the ID of it is going to be weight. The name of it is also going to be weight. And it is a required field so that somebody will have to type there. If they don't type, they can't continue. I'll copy all of this code here. I'll paste it at the bottom of this, and I'll change where I have the weight to height. So this will be capital H. This place will be centimeters. This place will be H. And this place is also going to be H, but the rest will remain the same. I need to create a button. So over here, I'll have a button. The button will have type button. And then I would bring this and say the name of the button is calculate BMI on it. Now, when the calculation is done, I want to display my answer. So over here, I'll create another div, and then I'll call it ID is equal to result, so that the answer I want to display would display in ID result. So on my screen now, this is the code in which I have. I have BMI calculator, this, and I have a div at the bottom over here to display my result. Look at how I wrote the code. Look at how I know what I want to be on the screen. Look at how I know that everything in which I type, I know the effect it is having on my screen. I don't have to check. I know that after I'm done, it will be there. On this page, I'll scroll to the top. I'll tell the computer I want to create a link. REL is going to be style sheet. And then I'm going to say the reference of it is going to be style.what? CSS. And then in here, I'll close up the link. Now I'll open styles.css and I'll begin writing my CSS code. The first thing I will do, let me collapse this, push this to the left, and then I would come for this and I will push this to the right so that I can have this and this showing on the same page so that you guys can see the effects it is having. So in here, I said, I'll first say my body should have a font family. So font family of Arial, and that. I would say my background color should be off-shell white. So hashtag F or F4, F4. You can see immediately the background color here is changing to off-shell white. And it is being done because I'm using live server. So everything I do automatically, the update does once I click on save. So back here again, I have display. This is going to display flex. I have justify content. So I want to justify my content to center. So you can see that it moves it onto the center in the horizontal line. Now, vertically, I also want it to be in the center. So I'll tell it to align items to the what? To the center. I want it to take up the full screen the person is using. So the height of it should be 100% of the viewing area of the person. The moment I do that, then everything I'm doing will be in the center because it is taking up the screen. And then I'll tell the computer finally that everything in the body should have a margin of what? 0. So that all the spaces around it will be what? Removed. Then I'll go to dot container. Dot means it's a class. Remember, we said the container that everything is inside is called container. So here we have class container. I'll come back here. I'll open up this and I'll say my background color is going to be white. So you can see that for the container section, you see that that alone is white. I'm saying that there should be a padding of 20 pixels so that it is touching the edges so that it will free from the edges. I'm saying that the border radius should be 10 pixels. So you can see that my edges are curved now. I'm saying that we should have a border, a box shadow of 0, 4 pixels, 8 pixels, and we will be using RGBA, and we will have 0, 0, 0, 0.1. So we have a nice faded pop-up, and that's what the box shadow gives us, a nice pop-up, making our thing pop up as if it is a 3D object on the screen. And then I have a maximum width of 400 pixels. And then I have a width of 100%. So that it will take 100% of the area it is on. Beautiful. Now I'm going to attack the H1. The H1 is which one? It is this one. This one here, we said it is H1. So I'm going to attack it. I want it to be in the center of everything. So I'm going to tell the computer again, or my browser, that wherever you see H1, make sure a text aligns to the center. and immediately moves it to the center. I'm saying dot input group. Remember, we put the label and the input tag in the input group. So dot input group hyphen group. We said the margin, and not only margin, but the margin from the bottom half of it. That means that for each of them, their bottom half, I want you to have a distance of 15 pixels. So you can see that now they are separated. They are not together anymore. I want the label now. So wherever you have a label, I want you to display the label as a block. So now you see that they are not in one line. Because it's a block, it will take up the whole space. So whatever that is beside it will come to the bottom. And then we are also saying that the label to have a margin from the bottom of 5 pixels so that to separate from the what? The input. So the small separation there. It's not together anymore. The input tag itself. Let's now attack that. I want it to have a weight of 100% of whatever size of screen it has. So you see it has taken up the space. Because people will be typing inside here, you see that when I click here and I type, it is touching the edges. I don't want that. So I'm going to tell the computer that the padding of it should be 10 pixels. So you can see that there is a big space. Now when I start typing, there is 10 pixel space between them all. I want the background color of it to be blue. To be blue. So I want hashtag 007 BFF. Oh, sorry, not that one. I've skipped where I'm doing. I've gone to the button. I want the border of my input tag to be 1 pixel thick, solid, and should be ash. So CCC. Yes. So it's not that thick. And then I want a nice border radius so that my edges would be curved. So it is going to be 5 pixels so that it is curved. Back here again, I'm going for the what? The button. I'm saying the button should have a width of 100% of whatever container it is having. It should have a padding of 10 pixels. It should have a background color of blue, so 007 BFF. It should have a color, this is the font color, so color of white. The border should go away so that they see that there's a black thing there. I don't want that black thing there. So the border should be none. So the border will all go away. The border radius of it should be 5 pixels so that the edges are curved again. And then whenever someone puts the cursor on it, the cursor should be a pointer. So that whenever my cursor gets there, it turns into a pointer. So the person knows he has to click there. And we want the font size of that section there to be 16 pixels. So it's a bit bigger. Now, when the person brings when I bring my cursor on it like this, so go and look for the button. And when you find the button, when someone hovers on the button, make the background color of that section deeper blue. So we have 005 6B3. So that whenever I bring my cursor closer, it takes it to a deeper blue so that the person knows, oh, here I'm supposed to what? Click. It gives them that animation. Now I want the hashtag because it's an ID result. And I'm saying that the result should have a margin top of 20 pixels. There should be text aligned to the center. And it should have a font size of 20 pixels. This is my design after I added the CSS. This is how my work looks like. Command control practice. CSS is design. Whoever who told you design is easy is a lie. You must learn design. You must feel design. Some people want it that way. Some people want it this way. You must practice other people's design. Look at how other people do their own and practice. You must practice. There is nothing you can do around that. So now I have to write my code to make it work. Because when I type something here, and I type something here and I click calculate, it's not calculating anything. So now I have to make it calculate things for me. So what do we use to do the calculation of things? We use our what? JavaScript. That means on the side here, in my document, I have to scroll to the bottom. Inside the body tag, I'll say script src is equal to, and in here, I'm looking for script.js, and then I'll close my script tab. That means I've joined the code over here to it. Now, I have to put my code in a function. So I have function calculate BMI, and then the body of the function. That means that in here, in the HTML code, I have to go there and look for the button and tell the computer that on click of that button, go and look for calculate BMI. So when I come back here, I can now type in the code in the middle over here. What do we want to type? I would say let the weight of the person be equal to pass float document dot get element by ID. And what element do we want? We want the weight of the person. But we not just want that, we want the what? Dot what? Value. I'll do the same thing for what? Height. Now, if the weight of the person is greater than 0, and at the same time, the height of the person is greater than 0, then we can do and calculate everything for the person. If it is not, then you would say else. Document dot get element by ID, and in here we are looking for the ID we called result. And we are looking for the inner HTML of result. And in here, in this inner HTML, we'll put the please enter correct values. So it means that if your weight is 0 and it's 0, you have to enter correct values. Then we come here. Let BMI be equal to weight over height times height. So that's the formula for calculating BMI. I'm also going to say let result text be equal to in double quotes your BMI is, and then I'll use plus to join and say BMI. Now, If I leave it like this, it will show a long piece of writing. So I'll add dot to fixed, and I'll put 2 here so that it gives me the like 2 decimal points behind. So that the decimal points are not plain. Now this takes care of the first half. The second half is I have to tell the person if he is overweight or those kind of things. So here I'll have to type in if the BMI of the person is less than 18.5. Then we will take the text in which we prepared. We'll take the text we prepared over here and add equal to you are let me give some small gap here. You are underweight. Full stop. Else, if the person's BMI is greater than 18.5, and at the same time, the person's BMI is less than 24.9, then the person, we will join this statement here. So we are adding to this text here. Let's not give a space between this and this, so that it will not give us an error. And then we'll say you have a normal weight. Else if the person is 25 or 29.9, then we will tell the person you are overweight. And finally, we'll just say else. You are obese. Our application now has to end with document.getInnerHTML. And then in here, we'll just put in results text because we have prepared the result text already. So now, if I come back here, I open my application in my browser. I type in my value here, and I type in a value over here, and I click. So I entered the correct values. Oh, okay, sorry. Put a value here and a value here, and I click. Okay, it's telling me I entered incorrect values, which means I have an error somewhere. Let's go and see where I have an error. So scroll to the top. This is fine. This is weight. Oh, okay. I understand why it's giving me an error. Over here, I'm supposed to put this dot get value over here, and this dot get value thing here is supposed to be over here. Because there's nothing like weight dot get value in our IDs we have here. We only have an ID width and an ID height. So if I come back here in my application, I don't know which one it is, so let me open it all up again. And I type in something here and something here, and I click here, it tells me I am underweight. If I have something here, I don't know any I don't know correct values, but let's say this is 11. It tells me I'm underweight still. If I have 5, this is too big. Or let me say 100. And here your height is, let's see, that. Then let me do this. So that's basically the calculation. And the displays are there. If I go 0 here, 0 here, and 0 here, and I click here, and it will tell me to enter a correct score. Next week when we arrive, now we can do a lot more applications with HTML, JavaScript, and then CSS together like this. Because we have basics of each, and we can dwell and talk more and then well designed. Again, the video of the class will be made available to you within an hour of the class ending. Try and practice. If you have a problem, let me know, and I will help you solve them. Are there any questions, please? If there are no questions, thank you for coming. We'll meet again next week.
Thank you.